All right, good afternoon. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. Hope you're enjoying your final day of 2018, and Happy New Year's to each and every one of you. And looking into 2019, really excited about kind of the market setup going into 2019, where some things are. It's been a long time since we've had a setup like this going into a new year, so very, very nice to see. Overall market, here today, as I mentioned this morning, I don't expect today's going to be a game-changing day. It opened a little higher, it sold off, it's bounced a little bit. But here you can see on this 1 hour chart of futures, you can see that for 2 days the market's been in the same spot. And yes, it's had a 50-point range on it. Right, so it's one of those where right now the magnitude of movement is compressing. You can even look at the volumes this morning, very light. In fact, one of the lightest mornings in a long, long time in terms of volume. Final day of the year, this isn't something where, we're likely to see game-changing action that says, oh man, now this stock's bullish and now this stock's bearish because of today's action. It's just doesn't happen. It could, but rarely does it happen. And looking over the landscape of the market today, it doesn't look like it's happening. The catalysts aren't there for it. We are seeing some significant option compression within individual names, from Nike to Boeing to Microsoft to Facebook to Bank of America. We're seeing some significant option compression taking place within a lot of these names. Now, it's not everything, meaning it's not compressing every little bit, but getting back to really cheap levels. But there's a compression action that really is going on here today, and that kind of started here a little bit at the close yesterday, or Friday. I know the market sold off, but here you can see Bank of America. This option closed at 66 cents on Friday, and today Bank of America is up 14 cents. Well over 0.5%, and the option value, it's actually the same price right now. There's just a lot of that where stocks are moving within 0.5 to 1% value. Options aren't moving. They're with them. And, that is something that is a very high risk out there, much higher risk than what we have seen in a long time, and it remains. But we're seeing some of it come out here today, which is nice to see. Overall, healthcare is the leader of the day. The healthcare sector, the XLV, leading here. As this has had a pretty sharp snapback. This has been a fund manager favorite throughout 2018, and it's a sector whose fundamentals have not changed on this sell-off. And I think that's one of the very important elements when it comes to healthcare to keep in mind. This sell-off that healthcare had, yes, J&J helped to drive it in some of the fears there, but J&J in a normal market environment would not have fallen this much on that news, on the talcum powder news. So this is one where overall the fundamentals of the group, the fundamentals of the sector haven't changed, even though the sector has just gotten hammered. And I think that's a very important distinction as we go into 2019, and we'll be talking about it more and more as we go forward, and going about and trading the group here. And I think it's going to be a very hot trade here as we go into next year, as there are some economic concerns that investors start to kind of look and go, well, you know what, how can I get some exposure without having some of the economic concerns? So we will be taking a very close look, but it's outperforming here today. Now, the tendency on a day like today, there's no real tendency in terms of morning, afternoon action, other than it tends to be insignificant, but there is a tendency that the market sells off into the close. Some years it's been the last 10 minutes, some years it's been the last 90, some years it's been a 5-minute kind of flush, and a lot of times it's for tax selling or for some sort of window dressing, whatever you want to call it. But, as we've talked about, I don't know that tendency has to keep up this year, as we may be seeing some short sellers taking some gains, but we could also see some tax loss selling here as we go into the new year, and fund managers wanting to lock in some losses for their funds from a tax standpoint. So I still expect the market to drop here into the close. But keep in mind, that drop is not going to have anything to do with anything. It's not. We're not going to be able to look at the market and go, "Oh, it fell in the last 10 minutes. Market is bearish." That's just not the case. And to extract some sort of meaning like that, I don't think is the case. I've been looking at the option pricing here, with it, and where are they? Can I play something like that? It's well too early to play it now. But, later on, can I play it a little bit? And the reality is not really. Not really. And it's one where, the options, the delta on them, it just isn't much worth it. In fact, I looked and thought, maybe I get something a little out of the money, for real cheap, and if it falls off, then great. But you can see even looking at 30 points down, you still can't get these for 5 cents, like you can normal years. And, it's, just a product of this market. And so, unless that changes, which it probably won't, I'm not going to look to play that. But, I can't argue with anybody who does. That's the tendency. Again, tendency doesn't mean it's going to happen, but, that is the tendency here. As far as individual stocks go and how they're moving today and reading anything into it, again, I'm not gonna play that game. I think it's pretty foolish here, on a day like today. I do think there is, there's some interesting news out there, but nothing that I look at and say, man, this is really game changing. One piece that is definitely not what you want to see if you are bullish is to see some of the data here, and we're going to be getting a lot of data at the end of the week. We won't have the we will have the jobs data, even though normally when there's a holiday on the week, that jobs data is pushed off, and we don't have that. But we will have that this year. On the job situation here on the 4th, and then we will have the ISM construction spending. I think that's a very important number as we go forward here. And then the PMI manufacturing index on Wednesday. Now, one number that really fell off this morning was the Dallas Fed manufacturing survey, and we've seen these surveys, these district surveys, really kind of fall off across the board. This is no exception. It was expected at a 17, came in at a minus 5.1, and that is a very big move. That is one, showing significant slowdown. Now, this is one where you kind of have to take it with a little bit of grain of salt. Look at the region, Dallas, Texas, oil. What's happened with oil? Well, oil has fallen off of a cliff, right? So the general survey sentiment news is going to sour when that happens. It's going to sour to a greater degree in the Dallas area than it will in, let's say, the Chicago or New York area, or even the San Francisco area, here. So anyway, we see that erosion, but, you kind of have to take it with a little bit of grain of salt there. But overall, nothing that I look at as, is really game changing here. But bottom line, and I will talk a lot more about this on Wednesday. But bottom line is, we go into next year. It's one of those where the last month, been given a lot of thought to direction of Trader Minute, direction of, how I want to take things. And this year, I turned off chat for my own sanity. as 3 years of doing that is at some point I have to kind of turn off some of the noise factors there. But where do I want Trader Minute to go? Where do I think it's the best spot to go as we move into 2019, 2020? It's one where I will continue the challenges and everything else. But one of the things that has one of the byproducts of the chat system that Trader Minute had was this whole, what does this mean? And what does that mean? And what does this mean? And what does that mean? And, oh, man, the market's up a little this morning. What does that mean? Really just trying to derive meaning into so much. And one of the mistakes that I have made, or one of the traps I've gotten caught into is getting caught in that game, which is not a game that I have ever played in my career, and trying to look closer at things and go, I wonder, does that have meaning, so that I can kind of explain it a little bit. And I've really backed off of that here in the last several months, and will continue to do so. This is not the challenge and where I am and who I am. I'm not the type of guy. I don't, great, market just rallied 6 points. Okay, fine. It happens. It's part of the natural progression of things. It's not something that, matters in terms of what I'm doing and in the way that I look at things. So I'm not going to spend my energy there. But one of the things that I really want to drive home here in 2019 is the routine of trading, the work behind it, and the routine of it, and show that it's not this game of, oh man, what's the news today, and oh my goodness, what did this analyst say about this, and what did that analyst say about that, and oh man, what did U.S. President Trump tweet? And yes, all those things they aggregate to create a market. But they're not predictable. They're not usable. They're not something that you look at and go, oh, okay, this is a tool I can use to go out and make money in the market. And so it's not totally ready yet, but I will show it here later this week. But I will be sharing a spreadsheet that will be accessible, throughout the month of January. And what it will have is it will have the stocks that I am focused on. Okay, the stocks that I'm very focused on. It'll have some of their story, where I think the pros and the cons are for that stock, meaning the bull story, the bear story. It'll have some of the major announcements, major news, some of the major upgrades or downgrades, just to kind of keep track there. These are all things that I do personally and have done personally, but I'm going to be making it a little more exposed here. Also going to be filling it in with weekly charts to understand the weekly dynamic of those individual stocks, along with kind of daily tracking of the signals, the KD signals, Trend Rider signals with those names, as well as a couple other signals that I like to track here with things. And you'll be able to see that. Just because my watch list and there's a signal doesn't mean I'm going to go trade it for the challenge, right? This isn't something where I'm using it and saying, well, that one signaled, so I'm going to go do it for the challenge, or that one did it, I'm going to go do it for the challenge, right? It's still something where this is my tool for kind of looking at things, understanding things, being able to really kind of understand the layout in a nutshell, and if some real change is actually happening, or if things are just kind of oscillating, overall. So I will be sharing that, using that as a basis to teach from as we go forward throughout the course of this month, and to really kind of show the process of live trading that I take. And I know everybody's process is a little bit different, but really the process that I take to essentially filter out the news, to filter out the noise, to filter out all the, oh, what does this mean and what does that mean, and all of that, and oh man, is today the day that, today the day I got to step in and be a big buyer buyer or a big seller, and some of that angst, some of that anxiety that I know many traders and many in this community naturally have, right? That's a very natural, that's a very normal type of angst there. We'll also be doing something a little bit different this earnings season because I think it is such a pivotal earnings season, and that I think this is one where major opinion on individual stocks could change dramatically. I don't think this is going to be one of those earnings seasons where you can look at and say, oh, well, you know what, Microsoft, it's been bullish, it's had really good earnings, it's been really good, it's going to stay that way. No, there's a chance that changes, right? Where other earnings seasons, no, it's not going to change. It's going to be the same thing. But to see stocks make abrupt changes like Apple did last earnings season, right, which is, or FedEx did last earnings season, or that, I guess I shouldn't say Nike this season, but, Nike 3 seasons ago, right? I think there's going to be a lot of that that's really going to drive major fundamental trends. And so over the course of this earnings season, I'm going to be doing a lot more just earnings breakdown, earnings summations on individual stocks, and I'll be dedicating videos to them and adding those to the spreadsheet as far as, the stocks that I want to, some stocks I will do an earnings breakdown, but it's not so I can trade the stock, right? I'll go do an earnings breakdown on United Healthcare, but it's not so I can trade UNH. The options aren't really tradable, but it's to understand the environment and to be able to trade the XLV, to be able to trade some of the others within the group. So we'll be doing that here as this next earnings season starts to get ramped up here in the first couple weeks of January. It'll be a much more spread out earnings season, so it's a nice earnings season to be able to do this. I'm not going to have 300 earnings reports in a day that I got to, wade through, but I'm just going to be picking some of the major ones, some of the key ones, really breaking those down with you, and showing what the stories are. I'm not going to be sitting there and predicting what's going to happen, tomorrow or the next day or, a month or 2 months from now, but I'll show what the tendencies will be with what they have and how I kind of look and have a bias on those. And so that'll be, between that and the spreadsheet that's going to be very trade encompassing. Those will be some of the heavy content elements that I will be sharing here on Trader Minute throughout the month of January, and we'll see how that goes, and really looking forward to it. I will be trading as well for the challenge. The challenge environment's been really bad the last couple of weeks with the option values where they are. The volatility has been nice, but it's been some pretty bad option values and things where, how much follow through am I really gonna get with that? And so, it's something where my next trade, it doesn't have to hit and we'll still be okay, but it's got to have some great odds, right? In terms of both direction and option value here. So that's what I'm looking for. I don't see anything today or this morning that I look at and say, wow, this is really compelling, really intriguing. I got to go jump in that. I do think some of the lows from Friday and today, if they are to start to break down at the beginning of the year, Wednesday, Thursday, especially something like a Caterpillar, if they start to break the lows from the last couple days, we can see some substantial selling, come in. But if it happens this afternoon, I don't read much into it. If it happens Wednesday, I read a lot more into it. And outside of that, a lot of stocks, they just, for me, need some higher lows to come in, right? Things like Apple, okay, it's at a low. Okay, great. It could be the bottom. Fine. It could be just ready to go higher from here. Give me a higher low, and I'll be much more eager to go after it. The higher low, the option prices will be a little better, and the risk reward will be significantly better. So hopefully we get 2019 off to a ripping start here with a couple really good trades. We can get stuck in and really get that challenge pumping while we go ahead and do some of these other content enrichment elements here with TraderMinute in 2019. Thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a great one. I'll put some final thoughts on the market here into chat, and if I get into a trade, that'll be sent out. But as things look right now, I'd be very reluctant to do so. Meaning very reluctant to get into a trade. I don't think there's a whole lot of significance with where options are priced. I don't have a great reward potential playing a little sell-off into the close, but if something changes, then I will definitely make it happen. Thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a great one, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.